Hey y'all, this is David, the Georgia photographer, and we're gonna go over the 5 things that I wasted my money on. Since I've started my photography slash YouTube journey, you might call it, I have spent money on things, some to benefit the channel, some to benefit me, some to hopefully improve my photography. Some of them were more wasteful than others. And I've seen some videos over the past couple of years of people basically sharing some of the things that they have bought over the course of their photography career. Hold on, I'm about to try to sneeze. That they deemed was a complete waste of money. I sat down and basically swallowed an honesty pill and said, what do I have that I honestly don't really use? And the answers kind of surprised me when I actually started looking at it really hard. And it wasn't really easy for me to answer this question, because you don't want to admit that you wasted money. So you have to be honest with yourself when you do this sort of video, and sometimes it hurts. Item number 1, I bought the 85mm f1.8s lens for my Z6. Complete waste of money. I literally never use this lens. I bought it thinking that since I shoot street photography with a 55mm, 58mm, whatever on the X-T3, that I would end up wanting basically that focal length equivalent field of view on the Z6. Nothing could have been further from the truth. For some reason, I never seem to grab this lens when I go out and shoot street. I always grab the 24-70, or I run some kind of adapted lens, typically some kind of vintage Nikkor that I like. And for some reason, I have this, we're going to do a little segue here. For some reason, when I shoot the Z6, I like to shoot wide angle. I like to shoot 24mm a lot of times. And when I shoot the X-T3 or this new Leica, I tend to like a 50 to 58mm. So I'm looking from 75 to 85mm field of view. For whatever reason, it just seems to appeal to me that way. I don't know why. I got the 23 for the Leica, and it's okay. It's really good for documenting your family, you know, getting photos of daily life with your family. It does good at that. But the 85 f1.8s, never use it. It sits in the cabinet. Complete waste of money. Item number 2, I got Peter McKinnon syndrome over this one. Turns out I bought the Mavic Mini. Y'all know it, I showed it on a video. I failed to understand cinematography well enough to be able to deploy one of these cameras effectively. That's the problem. It's not that the camera's bad. It actually shoots very, very good video footage for a flying camera. I just don't know how to deploy it properly. It's slow to deploy. I actually had to write up a pre-flight checklist I keep in the case with it, because I changed it. As you can see, these aren't the factory rotor blades. I bought some of these colored rotor blades because I thought it'd be cool, and I wanted a spare set. I put them on it, you know, and flew it around some, and that's when I found that these screws will work loose if you don't properly torque them. And I didn't put fresh Loctite on them. So item number 2, blade screws are tight. I keep a little special screwdriver in the case with it, and I check the tension of the screws before every flight. You know, are the blades in good shape? You know, the memory card is in the drone. Critical that this little memory card's actually snapped into the drone. It'll fly without it just fine. The drone has a fresh battery. If you notice, I store it without a battery because I got the Fly More kit. So I have 3 batteries in the little housing, and it'll tell you the charge level on each one. So you always put a hot battery in it for a fresh flight, or I do at least. The controller is charged sufficiently, because nothing sucks more than getting on location and the controller's dead. It's a thing. And then remove the gimbal cover before the flight. Of course, before it takes off, it comes up on the display, remove gimbal cover in big red letters, but you know, it's on my pre-flight checklist now. So I actually have a pre-flight checklist. All that said, it's slow to deploy. It's not, you just don't whip it out and go take some video footage with it. To deploy this camera properly, takes a great understanding of cinematography that I honestly just don't have. I'm really more of a photographer than I am a cinematographer, and I struggle to employ this camera properly to get useful footage with it. I'll go and I'll take footage and I'll try to use it. Occasionally I get lucky and it looks okay. I've got a couple of videos with a little bit of drone footage in them. It looks good, but I'm not telling a very strong cinematic story with my drone footage. It was a waste of money. I just don't use it. Item number 3, my 70-200 f2.8 Nikkor telephoto lens, variable zoom. That's the long side of the trinity of lenses that Nikon sells. They have a 14-24 f2.8, a 24-70 2.8, and then a 70-200 2.8. That's supposed to be basically for a pro photographer, those lenses should basically cover all the bases, except for like special applications. Like if you were doing shallow depth of field portraiture, you'd probably want the 85-1.4 or something. But for, you know, like every wedding photographer that shoots Nikon on earth probably has the 70-200 f2.8. It's a staple. You know, it's one of those that's in your stable of lenses that you just have because it's so useful. Problem I have with that lens is I honestly don't need it. I bought it because it's the 70-200 f2.8. I didn't buy it because I needed it because of its functionality or because of its large aperture. I just bought it because it's cool. That was a mistake. It's a phenomenal piece of equipment, but it just sits in the camera case 99% of the time. And honestly, the times I did get it out and use it, I almost exclusively had it racked out to 200 millimeters the whole time. Very few times did I pull it back, ever. So honestly, when I got that 200 millimeter f4 prime, it pretty much replaced that lens. I don't have to stop down to f2.8 to get decent, you know, blurry backgrounds with portraiture with it. I can shoot that 200 millimeter f4 and get beautiful blurry backgrounds with it. It doesn't bring anything to the table that little 200 millimeter f4 does. It was just a waste of money. So I haven't sold it yet because I'm not ready to take such a bath on losing it. I just keep trying to justify to myself owning that lens was a good idea, when honestly I never should have bought it. I have a friend who is a pro photographer that does product photography professionally and gets paid well. He earns good money shooting product photos, and he's never owned that lens. He has the 70-200 f4. Works perfectly for him because, as he puts it, he stops down to f11 anyway. Shoots with strobes when he's shooting product photos, and he does, you know, if the object's big enough, he'll do focus stack. So he's not going to shoot it wide open. He said it was worthless to him to spend the extra money on it. And he chose wisely. I chose because it was cool, and that was foolish. Don't let that happen to you. Pick the lens that works for you. Don't pick the lens that looks cool because everybody else has one. That was a poor choice. Item number 4 is something that I don't have anymore. It's the Zhiyun smartphone gimbal. I bought one of those things thinking I was going to use it. It just didn't work. The whole process of using one of those involves you having to take your phone out of the case to get it to fit the gimbal, and then the gimbal has to be balanced every time. You have to get it all sorted out. So by the time you get it all hooked up, you're not interested in filming. So I found out pretty quick that that was just a waste of money. Wound up selling it on eBay, moved on with my life, and figured out different ways to get stabilized footage. But that was supposed to be number 4, and somehow I failed to record number 4 while I was on location. I somehow just skipped right over it. 5 is film cameras. I really want to like shooting film. I do, but I'm just going to be honest with you. Shooting film is great, but once I take the roll of film out of the camera, it becomes stressor. And because I've gotten so spoiled to being able to take the memory card out of my camera, poke it straight in the computer, and the images are there. Even the raw files, they're there. Because of that luxury that the digital camera brings, I can't bring myself to send the film off for processing. So I've shot several rolls of film with the X700 Minolta, and there's another 35mm camera I messed around with for a little bit. Those rolls of film are in the cabinet because it's too big of a hassle to send it off, get it developed, get it scanned. If the images come back and they're not like way underexposed or way overexposed or whatever, you know, because I don't want to pay for scans of black frames, you know, so I have to get the images back, choose the frames I want scanned, send them back, have them scan them, because I don't have any way of scanning frames. It's so burdensome that it makes it stressful to process the film. Like I said, I probably have a 5-gallon bucket full of film cameras that I've collected over the years. And I see them, and they're very, very sexy little machines that I really, really enjoy the thought of having and the thought of using. But once you take the film out of the camera, it becomes stressful because of that. That's kind of why I like the XT3. It gives me that film camera feel while I'm shooting, but I don't have to do the film camera processing when I'm done. And that was the beauty to me of the XT3. The knob layout, the controls, the functionality, the interaction, the only thing that's missing is winding to crank the shutter. Buying film cameras is something that could be a neat hobby, is collecting film camera bodies, but as far as, and shooting them. But if I could delegate out the whole processing and scanning and all that part to somebody else, I would probably shoot film. I have a whole bunch of film stock in my refrigerator. I have 120 film, I have 35mm film. It's just in the refrigerator waiting. And I've spent more money than I should have, or that I care to admit, on old film cameras. Sometimes to get the lens that's attached to them, but sometimes because they're cool cameras and I would just think that I might want to shoot with them. Like, I got 2 X700s. I don't need 2 X700s. Looking back, I could have took all that money that I spent on them film cameras and this drone, and I could have done some workshops. Went to different places and done workshops with different photographers and learned skills that I could use forever and that I would use. This, if you pick up one new skill from a workshop, you made it worth your trip. And you know, and it's those kinds of experiences. I could have took that money and took a vacation. I've learned that, and instead of buying stuff as much, I still buy a lot of stuff. Well, we'll get to that one day. Now, every fall, me and Aaron will meet somewhere in the Great Smoky Mountains typically, and we'll do at least a long weekend of landscape photography. Or like last year, we went up to Morristown, Tennessee to a camera store and shot street photography in Morristown. And you know, we get out and go do something, you know, and we go take beautiful landscape photos. We hiked up to a waterfall that was literally a trickle on a rock by the time we got there, but we did something. And you know, you have the camaraderie, and it's more valuable than a piece of equipment that you literally don't use. So with that, this is David, the Georgia photographer, and I appreciate you watching. If you like my video, I appreciate the thumbs up. And you know, if you like the channel, there's a subscribe button. I think it's right down there. And so until next time, get the camera out that you have, go take a picture with it, all right? I'll see you later. Bye-bye.